Continue. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Viti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyadesatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances over Srila Prabhupada.
Hari
This is a
Bol.
Srivadachi Gaurangi here.
Hari
Prabhu,
Bol.
we have a new student. Her name is Monopriya. She'll be
Okay.
joining. So if you can kindly allow her.
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hari Bol. So it's wonderful to be back again for our fourth lesson. And as usual, I will please request you all to turn your cameras on so we can be together in a classroom. In the meantime, I will just get a quick glass of water. Yeah, that's it. 1 second. Okay. Yes, so if we can see you, that will be best. We can get started. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Ashtaprayashvapatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Vishnu Padaya. So with the blessings of Lord Krishna, in this month of Kartik, we'll try and attempt to study further this Bhagavad Gita. And we covered a good chunk of chapter 3 last time. And so today we will complete chapter 3 and move on to chapter 4. So let's have a little recap first. What are some of the key points in chapter 3 that came out after Krishna has basically explained to Arjuna in summary the entire subject matter of the Gita in chapter 2. So in chapter 3, Arjuna asks certain questions to clarify certain points. And let's hear from yourselves some of the key points that were mentioned. What was chapter 3 called? Let's start with that.
Karma Yoga.
Karma Yoga. And if you were to explain what Karma Yoga is, how would you do it? There's so many terms are thrown around, aren't they? Normally, we've raised several terms already: Buddhi Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Kand, Karma Yoga. We've raised all these in chapter 2 and 3. So yes, what is Karma Yoga exactly?
Performance of one's duty without attachment to the fruits and offering those fruits as a sacrifice to Krishna, which I think is mentioned in verse 15 regarding the sacrificial element, what a sacrifice is, where prosperity arises from.
Yes. Yes, that is quite right. Karma Yoga is that process of offering the results. Yoga itself means to link, and karma is the process of linking to Krishna. Karma Yoga is the process of linking to Krishna through action. And of course, what is our underlying goal with this? With this practice of Karma Yoga, what are we hoping to achieve in comparison to just performing an action?
Satisfying Krishna, detachment to the fruits, the outcome of the work.
Yes, and why do we want detachment from the fruits?
Because it binds us back with lust and anger and other things as a byproduct when we start expecting.
Yes, that can happen, and we'll also recap the sequence of by which lust, anger, etc. arises. But something else concrete also happens as a result of performing actions in this world. one gets,
Reaction.
yes, one gets a reaction. Normally, an action involves a reaction, and that reaction takes the form of repeated birth and death in a broad sense. Because to receive everything that is due to you, or to have an opportunity to satisfy all your desires, requires a change of body, typically, when the old one gets worn out. And your desire program is still going on. At that time, the 95-year-old body which is barely functioning will no longer be suitable. So you need a new body. So yes, the purpose is that Krishna has been advising Arjun to engage in a program which does not result in consequential actions or reactions. Consequential action is a reaction. And so Arjun is saying, hang on the one hand, you're telling me not to act, and on the other hand, you're telling me to fight. This is how chapter 3 started. Okay, anything else?
The process of understanding, I mean, like the knowledge of self and our connection to Krishna.
Knowledge, yes, any specific points from the Shastra on that?
Mm. Like, how do you move from karma kanda to karma yoga?
Yes, so many points were raised in this chapter. Different terms were produced, like Nishkam Karma Yoga, that is work, as Simon mentioned, work without a desire for the results. And that is a very high form of Karma Yoga. A more beginner stage of Karma Yoga is called Sakam Karma Yoga, which means Karma Yoga without a full renunciation of the results. But you accept Krishna, you accept the process of linking, and therefore you offer a portion of the results to him in an effort to purify those results. That's the point. The idea is that when you engage in an activity, normally it produces a reaction of some kind. The aim is to offer some of that to Krishna so that reactions are not produced and the poisonous elements of that karma do not bite you. So within this description, Krishna throws in this point that he doesn't actually need to work. He says, there's no work prescribed for me in all the three worlds, yet if I ever stopped performing my duty, all the worlds will be put to ruination. So Krishna explains why he continues to work, and it's really an attempt to get Arjun to see the seriousness of Karma Yoga. That it is very much necessary, even if a particular person is transcendental to it, transcendental to performing action, it is necessary for society to have leaders who do perform correct actions. Because everyone in society performs actions. You cannot get away from it. Performing actions just to survive, and then so many other essential actions, and then so many other optional or kind of frivolous actions. So the point is that people in society need to be directed not to give up all action, but they need to be taught what are correct actions. And in fact, Krishna speaks that he says one should know what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. Akarma vikarmascha, akarma vikarmaya pashyat, etc. It goes like this, the verse. One should know precisely what is action, what is forbidden action, and what is inaction. It may come later. And in order to do that, you need a person who follows that, practices it. So Krishna says, I also engage in activity. because it sets an example for people, and people naturally follow what a great or a learned person or a prominent person does. If there is no such good example, then they will simply follow someone else who will lead them basically into a very, very hellish condition of life, because the types of activities they will encourage them to do will not be wholesome and uplifting, but they will be sinful and exploitative. Now, we touched on a sequence in chapter 2, a sequence of degradation, if you like. And it started with contemplating the senses. So I wonder if anyone can just describe what that sequence was.
Is it from contemplation of the senses, attachment arises from attachment, lust arises from lust, anger arises, and with anger, bewilderment, and no longer following religious principles sort of arises from that.
Yes, when memory is bewildered.
Memory is bewildered, yes.
Then next stage is intelligence is lost. And then one falls down again into the material pool. So this is the whole sequence. It's a wonderfully destructive sequence, in many ways meant to describe Arjun's situation. And he has maneuvered himself into this completely ineffectual, almost disgraceful state for a warrior, of being completely impotent and unable to do anything at all. And he's sitting down crying, throwing aside his weapons on the chariot. And Krishna has explained where this sort of situation starts from. It starts from contemplating the objects of the senses. So that is a good sequence for us to remember. Because in this chapter, chapter 3, Krishna speaks something about lust, which was one of the early parts of, one of the early stages in that sequence, right? Contemplating the object of the senses, attachment develops from attachment to lust. You can say lust is very much an intense enhancement on attachment, an intense drive, a certain passion there to obtain something. And the place we last left off was roughly around text 26 or so, where we emphasized that if someone is doing some activities, a saintly person should not encourage them to stop. And we spoke about the important service the Grihastha community supplies to the Varnashram system. So preaching is not meant to discourage Grihasthas from carrying out their Grihastha duties. Rather, they're supposed to be directed and encouraged to serve Krishna and hopefully move from the sense gratification, acquisition-based principles of typical householder life and move on to the platform of Karma Yoga, and especially Nishkam Karma Yoga. And this is Krishna's expectation of Arjuna also. Many of Arjuna's objections were to deal with inability to enjoy happiness if others aren't present and if society gets damaged. So Krishna's really dealing with this concept by saying that actually anyone who strives for sense gratification eventually ends up completely impotent like you. So therefore, our actions in this world should not be driven by sense gratification. They should be driven by duty. Do you remember this point, duty? And especially the principle of doing one's own duty as opposed to someone else's. Arjuna was a Kshatriya, a warrior, a family man, in the princely order. He's not meant to be acting like a Brahmana. And so it's very important that for a healthy society and for the upliftment of each individual in society, everyone knows what they should do and what they should not do. So we threw in this term also last time, or Krishna mentioned it, prescribed duty. Now, you may think a prescription comes from a doctor. So who is it that will prescribe a duty for me? And what will be my duty? What do you think? Who will prescribe for you what you should do, Bidisha, for example? Which would be your duty?
My guru, I think. My teacher, guru, and as like from childhood till now, anybody who is aware spiritually, of course, guru, materially, who has gone through that, walked that path, and what is right and what is wrong for me. In both ways, it is a guru, always, he or she. That's what I feel.
That's right.
Mm.
We need someone to direct us.
Mm.
And the guru's direction, while it may seem mysterious in the beginning, and you may not understand a particular instruction that's given, will later make sense as we advance ourselves. Why the guru engaged me to do this and not that? Why he asked me to stop doing this service and to do this, and maybe he asked me to study more, build up my shastric knowledge, and maybe he told me to stop doing this and change this aspect of my life and that. And yes, you're quite right also that there will be many gurus in our life. Many in all sorts of areas, materially, spiritually, in terms of mentorship, in terms of a shastric teaching, in terms of actual diksha, and in terms of formal direction. And all these persons each have a role to play in cultivating our Krishna consciousness. And so we are grateful to all of them. And we need to be actually, because it is through cooperation with them that we learn what is our prescription in life. And hopefully that will rescue us from a stage of being completely impotent and useless and not wanting to do anything in this world. I really don't blame anyone for not wanting to do anything in this world. It is a pretty troublesome place, and anything you do will result in a troublesome result. So that often depresses many people and disempowers them from doing anything. And then they just kind of laze around and just degrade further and further and further. So whilst we fully understand why someone may not want to be a full participant in the existing world, the reality is they're in this world, they came here, they're here, and they have to do something about it. So mental escapism is not a good idea. Far better that a person figures out what I should do with myself, and therefore then approaches a guru after studying Shastra also, learns the basic principles of Krishna consciousness, and then moves forward in a way that they can be productive for themselves and for society, and ultimately to serve Krishna. Samsiddhir haritoshanam, purpose of all our activities. Ata pumbir drishreshta varnashrama vibhagasa swanushtitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. So Bhagavatam says that all the activities we can do in accordance with our varnas and ashrams is all meant to ultimately satisfy the Supreme Lord. So direction in those regards is very, very useful. And the consequence of that is that we know what is prescribed for us, what is recommended for us. And the expert guru will know what medicine you need to take to deal with which ailment. And many times that ailment is not fully visible, but with intelligence can be understood. Our biggest ailment is the ego. A massive ego which directs and manipulates our every daily move. And the guru will often act in such a way, not so much to deal with the specific question that's on the front, in the front of your mind, but to actually deal with, helping you to deal with this ego. To give you ways by which you will learn humility, to give you ways by which you reduce your attachments. And sometimes the guru has to be very cutting and strong, because the barriers we have put up due to our ego are substantial and thick. They are very serious metal barriers, and you cannot easily go through them. So the Guru has to really give you some powerful words, some chastisement, in order to get you to wake up. And that's needed for all of us. It's needed. So this is what happens when someone gets correct instruction. They learn their prescription, and they're also empowered to perform their actions. Because with an instruction also comes empowerment. The Guru is not interested in just simply ordering you around. His job is also to empower you to do the things you need to do. And that's a very important aspect. So this was text 35. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duties is better than engaging in another duties, or to follow another's path is dangerous. You, Arjun, are a Kshatriya. You are meant to fight, and I've already told you what will happen whether you win or lose the fight. Don't pretend to be a Brahmana and or a sage or someone like that, and do your acts of renunciation. This does not befit you. So Arjun, after hearing all this, he now inquires on some of the points, makes further inquiries on some of the points Krishna has made. And he says, I understand that this process of downfall begins high up with lust, contemplating the objects. But what is it exactly that causes one to keep doing sinful acts, even if they know there's a problem? The person knows smoking is harmful, but he keeps doing it. The drunkard knows it's bad for him, but he keeps doing it. You can extend that to any aspect of life where people are doing something they shouldn't be doing. The person who's has a sedentary lifestyle, you could say, or has just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, carries on eating lots of sweets even though they know they shouldn't. What is it, Arjun says, that impels a person to sinful acts as if by force? And here Krishna answers. Text 37, Vidisha, please.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world.
Lust only. Only lust. Which, if you remember, we described comes after attachment, and it becomes an all-consuming drive to obtain sense gratification. That's, if you want to define it, that would be a good definition. An all-consuming drive to obtain sense gratification. And that causes you to do things that are bad, even if you know they're bad, because you have now a deep impetus and an urge and a push to do something. Krishna carries on. Text 38. Simon, please.
As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by the different degrees of this lust.
Right. So are embryos covered by the womb? Yes. Is there any embryo which is not covered by the womb? Not in a healthy condition, right? Normal situation is embryo is always covered by the womb. And dust, I mean, how many mirrors do you know that aren't dusty? Well, maybe if you've just cleaned it, but sooner or later, within a few moments, it's got some specks of dust on it again. And do you know any fire without smoke? And I don't mean these fake electric fires. You know, they even have these flame effects. Sometimes they have this cloth, right? And the cloth waves around. There's a fan there also. It makes it wave. Now, a real fire, there's always some kind of smoke. But the point is that there's no such thing as an embryo without the womb. So similarly, the living entity is covered by lust. And the sooner we recognize it, the better situated we are on a platform of honesty. Lust is there. Did I tell you this this humorous interaction that Prabhupada had with his disciples last time? One of his disciples said to him, Prabhupada, I'm completely free from lust. And Prabhupada said, well, you should go and see a doctor. Right? Lust comes with it. It comes with the package, and each person is covered by it to some degree or other. So if anyone is claiming that they are completely transcendental to it, they're probably not telling you the whole truth. Yes, by our potent spiritual practice and by understanding the origin of lust, we do learn to control it and to mitigate its effects, to the extent that it may not even start to drive us. But what we should know very clearly is that this body itself is just calling out to lust. It's been designed to act as a conduit for lust. So even if you get to a very advanced stage of liberation, there's every chance that in a moment of weakness, maybe a moment of madness or a moment of bad association, that lust will once again infect you and take hold of you. And therefore, a devotee never thinks, I am now a devotee and therefore freed from all this and I can do whatever I like. On the contrary, the devotee thinks, I am in such a dangerous situation that I will do my utmost best to protect myself from this lust. Text 39. Mazar, please.
Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire.
Yes, this is how powerful it is. What we refer to as lust is never satisfied and burns like fire. You can pour as much ghee as you like into a fire, or petrol, or something, and the fire will never say, enough, don't give me more. It will happily consume whatever else you add to it. It will happily consume it. And therefore, we all have the experience in our lives that despite a lifetime of sense gratification, never have the senses and the mind stopped and said, that's enough. I'm satisfied, I don't want more. It just doesn't happen, does it? Maybe to some of you, you may be advanced sages, I don't know, but typically it doesn't happen. The senses are, it's feast time again, and let me go for it. Or time for me to enjoy this, that. They never stop. They're never satisfied. Text 40. London College of Vedic Studies, please.
Alexander, Alexander.
Alexander, yes.
The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him.
This is a very important verse. The senses, the mind, the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. These are the places where it resides and where this infection has taken hold. Sometimes you have a chest infection. Sometimes you might have a, I don't know, what other type of skin infection, maybe sometimes. Sometimes some other infection. It's localized there. And those places are especially conducive to infections. What happens is that lust happily sits there, grows, multiplies, and covers the real knowledge of the living entity until the living entity is completely bewildered. Senses, mind, and intelligence. Each one of these is especially vulnerable. So Krishna gives an instruction to Arjuna how to deal with this, and that's text 41. Bidisha, please.
Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization.
Yes, remember that's in your flowcharts. Hopefully you have your flowcharts with you. The first item on the flowchart was contemplating the objects of the senses, which then leads to lust as the third stage. And Krishna is saying, okay, in the very beginning, deal with this by regulating your senses. That way you will not develop attachment to sense objects. This is a very, very scientific development that's happened here in this chapter. And Krishna gives a bit of a repetition now, or a repetition, some background theory. Text 42. Next, Simon, please. You can just keep the same sequence. So Bidisha, Simon, Mazar, and then Alexander.
The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence.
So now draw another flow chart. Another little chart. Just take a couple of minutes to draw that. This, you will refer to this. Matter at the bottom. Working senses above it. Mind above the senses. Intelligence above the mind. And the soul above the intelligence. I'm just going to try something here.
And super soul.
No, just the soul. And you could say the super soul is on top of that if you want. Are you able to see it? Did a board pop up on the screen?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Yes, probably.
that's good. So let me try typing something here. Right, that's at the bottom. Not quite at the bottom. Whoops. I'm just going to play with this bit. A few moments. Yeah, senses. And then let's add another one. Dull matter. Are you able to add stuff as well?
I think so, Prabhu.
Okay. So, Vidisha, can you add the item above senses?
I think, I don't know how it allows me to.
On the left, you'll have some tools and you click the T for text.
Oh, yeah, sorry, but it should be the mind. I don't know how to erase the other one.
Don't worry about that. I'll get rid of it in a minute. Good. And you can put the, yeah, others can help. Simon, yes, stick the next one on. And what is above the intelligence? Something needs to go here.
Oh,
Yes. We've got that sequence, right? Now, obviously, you could rearrange everything. You could sort of do a nice flow chart. You could draw this sideways. You can draw arrows like this. But basically, this is what I mean, which way around you put that arrow could be a mystery. If you want to do it showing things higher, it's like this, right? And let's move anyway. Okay, we'll delete that. It's useful to be able to draw these things because now you know. Dull matter is right at the base level. It's not active in any way. The senses, that includes your sense objects in the entire processing in cooperation with the mind. In cooperation with the mind, what happened to my laser? It's disappeared. In cooperation with the mind here, that allows you to engage with these objects. And then the intelligence processes the mind, and the soul is seated above that. Now, what does Krishna say in text 43? Next person.
Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust.
Okay. So do you see the sequence by which control is meant to happen? You're meant to steady the mind, which is this character here. Give me a second. You're meant to steady the mind. Oops. Okay. You're meant to steady the mind by the intelligence, right? Intelligence is this one here, right? And that intelligence is meant to come from Krishna consciousness, which is meant to act on your soul at the soul level. Topics connected to the soul are termed Krishna consciousness. And in that way, the correction mechanism goes this way, right? That's how correction is done. Now, there's something else that happens in the other direction. Something else that happens in the other direction, right? Take that one. Take that one. Take that one. In our everyday life, which of these are we operating under? Oops. In our everyday life, which side are we operating on? The left side or the right side?
I'm assuming the left side because you're using your senses and whatnot.
Yes, you're right. And
I have a question. What about the consciousness? Is it part of the diagram or is it not?
that's there in the soul.
Okay.
Soul is there at the top. Soul basically includes anything transcendental on the spiritual realm, and it's the symptom of the soul is consciousness. While we're in the materially conditioned state, that consciousness is exhibited through intelligence and mind, which is the subtle body.
Yeah. So where would that be in the diagram?
It's all of them. It's the top.
Okay.
Soul, intelligence, and mind is typically what you are as a package wandering around in this world. We have three bodies. We have our spirit soul, that's one layer. And we have the subtle body surrounding it. And then we have the gross body around it. So in the embodied state, we are not just, you know, we sometimes say you're not the body. Okay, technically it's true. But while you're in the embodied state, you are a package of all these three things. And each of them is going to cause you different problems and different advantages. In normal everyday life, oh, this thing keeps popping up. I should get rid of it. In everyday life, the senses, and now let me see if I can get my, oh no. Are you able to see anything with my, can you see the laser pointer or not? No, you can't. That's disappeared.
No, I can see your name like red color. Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
As it moves around?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So, all right. Oh, that's just a pointer then. So in normal life, what happens is our senses, which is here, becomes attracted to some item of dull matter. Right? The senses develop some attraction. The senses have a consultation with the mind, without which the senses cannot really do anything at all. The mind says, yes, yes, let me have it. Let me have it. Slightly higher up is the intelligence, and the intelligence then starts scheming ways to obtain that, which the mind has decided it wants. And therefore you now have the intelligence being pulled along by the mind, which is being pulled along by the senses, which are attracted to dull matter. And as a result of it, this poor spirit soul, which is meant to be there, doing his thing, spirit soul is meant to be there, you know, all blissful, all cognizant, all wonderful. That poor spirit soul becomes completely dragged along as a servant of the conditioned consciousness. It's a very sad situation to be in. And therefore the right-hand path, this path, is actually the path that is recommended for sane living. With transcendental intelligence, maybe we can add that, we can put that here, spiritual intelligence, which can be Shastra, right? Or the super soul or something like that. That is supposed to act. That is supposed to act on the soul. And that is supposed to direct, supposed to delight and entice the soul into controlling the intelligence. Actually, that spiritual intelligence, it kind of, let me just shift it a bit. It acts kind of, it's sort of this more accurate there, with the soul kind of there, right? That spiritual intelligence acts on behalf of the soul's interests. That's the best way to put it. So when our intelligence here, which is normally materially contaminated, is replaced by spiritual intelligence from Shastra and from devotees, it then is supposed to control the mind, which is supposed to control the senses, i.e., which of the senses are allowed to be engaged and which inputs are to be received or not. So you see, the whole process of Krishna consciousness and focus is about switching the model around. Another analogy you can use, and maybe you'll have seen the picture on the front of the Bhagavad Gita, the horses and the chariot. The senses are compared to the horses, right? The chariot driver is compared to the mind. The intelligence is compared to the driver of is compared to the, you know, the one giving the orders to the chariot driver.
The
Like,
belts.
to the, sorry?
Belts. The belts that control the horses.
Yeah. It's, I mean, there's different analogies, but the person who is directing the driver, right? That's that role, the intelligence. Now, in the normal circumstances, the horses are running wild. It's the same analogy. You can just see it. We're going upwards here. The horses, which means the senses, they're running wild. They're pulling the driver. And the intelligence has no solution other than just to follow the wild mind that has been totally overcome. That's why hopefully you can see from this whole picture that at the heart of all of this, this guy here, the mind, is the most important. This one is the most important component in our successful spiritual practice. We have to control this guy with intelligence. which is sourced from spiritual sources. And then that mind is supposed to regulate the senses. That driver is supposed to pull the reins or use the whip or whatever to regulate the senses. So you can almost say the general world has got it all wrong. Most people in this world are operating on a very destructive pattern. This simple little thing of a sense becoming attracted to a sense object is now driving the functions of something much higher. It's driving the functions of something that is meant to be the master, which is the soul, right? That's what's happening in this sorry condition that we're in. So we are basically, I'm trying to fill this right. That's it. That's what I wanted to do. We have to start protecting this guy here, the soul. Not let it be dragged around by all of these below, but be facilitated by those below, especially the mind. Okay, let's take some questions, if there are any. Okay, that's good. It is quite clear, really. Krishna very graphically makes this real. Are there any questions that's actually the end of chapter 3? Are there any questions relating to how we've developed that whole theme? Many components were there. In chapter 2, the sequence of degradation starting from contemplation was there. In chapter 3, the need to work was there, and the need to be focused and to enact discipline was there, along with instructions of how to work and how to understand your prescription in life. Now, these are all kind of aids and skills and considerations that allow one to function. Yes, Prabhuji?
Guruji, I have a question. To protect the soul, one must live according to the Shastras, and people have to know their own duty. At that time of Vedic civilization, that was a little bit clear, because Kshatriyas, Brahmins, Shudras, and other people were divided. Right now, this is a little bit, I think, maybe in India it still continue, but in the rest of the world, it is a little bit, how shall I say, mixed, not mixed, or
that's a good word, actually. It is mixed up. It's a confused.
Therefore, for example, I have my, let's say, how should I know my own duty? By having, for example, by I have been born in a family like living with agriculture, doing so, it is my duty, like that, yes, I would like to ask, how can people know their own duty?
Yes, and this is the whole question of prescribed duty. What is prescribed duty? We have to, in the modern world, as you quite rightly say, everything is mixed up. There are multiple agendas flowing. The government has an agenda. You know, sometimes there's a skills shortage in a particular area, and they put schemes on to attract more people into that area. Then you will have the agenda of your parents, maybe. They thought that maybe you will become this. And then you may have the agenda of, say, your school. You know, maybe they think you should do this. And then there'll be the agenda of your family then. And those around you, those socially. And you will have many impetuses from all of this. And you will also have your own desires. You may also have desires for maybe wealth, money. Some people, that's not such a strong thing, and they choose a career based upon what they like to do, what makes them happy. Some people are happy to be train drivers. Others want to be the boss of a large multinational company. Others want to be a farmer. Someone else just wants to be a painter. So then there's your own desires as well. And somehow our journey in life, we kind of are influenced by all of these things, and we just somehow just choose something. And we just do something. And as is more often the case, we do all sorts of different things because of any lack of clear direction. However, I would say that don't let this picture of society concern you as an individual too much. Because maybe you already have an idea as to what sort of area or profession appeals to you. Now, every profession has its difficulties. But for example, a Kshatriya is meant to fight, and it's also painful. He's going to get injured. But if you put him on the battlefield where he experiences that danger, he will be satisfied in that role. If you put a Brahmana in the fighting ring, right, he's not going to be happy at all. The Brahmana, you ask him to perform severe austerities, controlling the mind for years. He may be happy doing that, even though it's very difficult. And the Kshatriya wouldn't be able to do that at all. So every job has its difficulty, and just experiencing difficulty is not the way you decide whether this job is for me or not. Rather, it's more to do with, do you feel a certain satisfaction or certain contentedness in that role? Now, maybe I can ask you in your sort of background, or are you from an agricultural family, or is there something like that? Yes. And do you feel happy in that sort of situation? Generally, you're happy. So
Comfortable, yes.
yes, you're kind of comfortable, and you know the hard work that's involved in that. It's definitely not easy. Now, the whole Krishi Goraksha Vaniyam, the duty of that Vaniyam, of the Vaishyas, involves a few things, not just farming. Farming, agriculture, mercantile trade. Those are all connected items to do with that Vaishya propensity. And so I would say that's a good starting point. That whole collection of generation, because obviously the farmers generate, they grow, they generate things, and then trade is a natural consequence of it, because then they have to trade those grains and those products with others, and they will gain different things. I would say start with that as an area, and then within that, you may choose something very specific. It doesn't actually matter too much. As long as you don't think that by nature and activities you are suddenly a Brahmana and that you will now start instructing society, or suddenly you've developed warrior tendencies and you will now, sign up for your army, or that maybe you just can't be bothered with anything and you will just now become a simple laborer and just do whatever people tell you. See, each of these three may be legitimate professions in themselves, but maybe for you they're not. So that's the most useful discussion or consideration to make for each person. And then as you maybe discuss that with others, you may get more insight into perhaps what specific area of agriculture or whatever you go into. And every single profession is valuable in Krishna consciousness. All the nice ones, at least. I mean, if you're a butcher, maybe that's a profession that you could possibly give up completely. But even then, there might be a use for that. For example, if you're making mridangas and you need leather, and it's not forbidden in our culture to take the products of an animal after it has died naturally. It's not forbidden at all. It's allowed. Maybe that's the way you would engage that propensity if that's how you were brought up, So there's very few things that would really be prohibited in Vedic culture. So yeah, nothing is fixed. and doesn't need to be either. Because for us now, the world is becoming a mess, and individuals are now being forced to do things that they really shouldn't do according to their nature normally. These days, if you're, say, as an example, living in the West, you have your own little house, you practically have to do everything, right? You have to earn the money. You may have to then also cook. You may have to do simple, laborious jobs, which you would have servants for in previous cases. In India, many families, sort of medium families and above, will have a few servants in the house. They will have some assistants, maybe some cook, some cleaner like that. That's very rare to see in the West today. So here you would have to do all of that yourself. And then you would probably end up repairing the house also, because the plumbers are too expensive, the builders are too expensive. Because everyone is now, it's become unbalanced. So then you end up doing everything. And then people make mistakes, and then they hurt themselves. And in terms of financial management, they also don't know how to manage finances properly. Shudras specifically are meant to be kept away from finance because they don't know how to manage it, and they blow it and damage themselves and society. So these are the dangers. But above and beyond all of that, for us, is that as we're learning all of this, we're more interested in practicing something called Devi Varnashram. Devi Varnashram. Varna and ashram, this comprises Varnashram society with its 4 occupations and 4 spiritual statuses. And Devi Varnashram relates to utilizing these with Krishna consciousness at the heart of all of our activities. Very much on the process of Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. So with that framework, everything we do it because it helps keep us stable and satisfied so that we can engage in the real Yuga Dharma of this age, which is chanting the holy name. So if we can find some trade, some profession, some occupation that keeps us stable, gives us an income for our needs, and gives us maximum time to engage in Krishna conscious activities, that is the best profession for us. And so sometimes people will downgrade their profession in order to give themselves more time. Sometimes they may change their profession into a connected area. Again, with Krishna at the center. So then for a devotee, that becomes the prime consideration. But never is anyone encouraged to give up their profession. It's not like that. All right, anything else? Okay, well, that's chapter 3. I think this is a good point to take a break. We'll have a little pause. It's 11:35 now. I would say 15 minutes. We can resume at 11:50. Okay. I think everyone's relishing the fact that the clocks went back today. So, so we have an extra hour, and hopefully everyone is not too stressed. Okay, I'll see you all at 11:50. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, let's resume our studies. And we'll embark on chapter 4, which is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. And this chapter comprises around 40 verses, 42 verses. Now, can you remember? We said something as to why transcendental knowledge was important and why Krishna chooses to give transcendental knowledge now.
Maybe because it is eternal?
It is eternal. That's true.
It helps control the intellect, and the intellect helps to control the other lower faculties, the mind, the senses.
Yes, definitely does. Very important as per that sequence we've gone through. Something to do with karma yoga. Well, it's a bit of a mystery on this, but it's on both sides. It's true. And this was
Is
in
it that?
chapter.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Prabhu. I was going to say, is it because the practice of Nishkarma Karma Yoga enables us to attain transcendental knowledge?
yes, very good. That is there. That is one of the directions. And now something to do with karma yoga. Transcendental knowledge. Yes, Alex. You raised your hand, right? Okay, something popped up on the screen there. That's interesting. Looked like a big thumbs. All right, I thought your hand was raised. We're learning the technique of transforming our activities into karma yoga. We have been in chapter 3. And actually, in chapter 3, it is mentioned that to surrender all our works to Krishna, which is necessary for Nishkam Karma Yoga, we actually have to know who Krishna is. See, Karma Yoga is performed properly when you surrender your works completely to Krishna. That's the full Nishkam Karma Yoga. And therefore you need some transcendental knowledge, something about the identity of Krishna, his nature, so that you surrender to the right person. So it's very interesting that transcendental knowledge allows you to perform karma yoga, and then the performance of karma yoga allows you to attain transcendental knowledge, clearly of a more advanced type. And it's a bit like this this statement that Srila Prabhupada has made regarding chanting. What is the result of chanting? And the answer is more chanting. What do you hope to gain? He was asked by all this chanting. What's it? More chanting. So with every improvement we make, we are able to perform the same process or the same practice with greater purity and with greater quality. And that's how we make advancement. After all, a junior devotee is basically doing the same activities as a very advanced senior devotee, isn't it? Chanting the holy name, reading scripture, thinking about the Lord, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, basically doing the same things. But is there a difference of practice? We would hope so. We would hope that after many, many years, decades of solid practice, the quality of that chanting would be better. quality of that reading would be better. The quality of the contemplation would be better. We would hope so. It doesn't always happen because people can get distracted sometimes. And certainly sometimes I look back and I think I used to practice much better in the early days. I was much more sincere and focused than maybe I think now. And maybe that's an honest contemplation for us to make sometimes. We cast our mind back to some of those moments where you really were just fully sincere, or more sincere than now at least. And then things have maybe become familiar. So it can go either way. But really our drive should be to try to be improving at each stage. And every year should bring us a new level of advancement and depth of service to Krishna. That's what we are aspiring for. So this transcendental knowledge is, of course, a very wonderful subject in itself, because discussing Krishna, hearing about Krishna is just hopefully for you also delightful. It's actually enjoyable, because there's no one else quite like him. No one else in the world is quite as exciting as Krishna, or does so many things, or has so many interesting people around him. There's no one else like that. So we'll go through chapter 4. We'll try and read most of the verses for this chapter. And we'll see how that can enlighten us and give us some ability to process the material in chapter 3 better. So let's start with verse 1. And specifically this first 10 verses or so will be concerned with transcendental knowledge about Krishna specifically. So let me give you your sequence. Bidisha, Simon, Mazar, and then Alex. And yeah, please just keep reading. I'll stop you in between to make some comments.
The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna said, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, the father of mankind, and Manu in turn instructed it to Ikshvaku.
Okay, can I also encourage, as you read these, you please also read the Sanskrit before, because these are all very, very important verses. Practically more than half of these verses in this chapter are verses that if you did remember them, regardless of whether you have to or not for the test, you'll find them very advantageous.
I can read the Sanskrit?
Yeah.
Okay. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Imam Vivasvate Yogam Proktavan Aham Avyayam Vivasvan Manave Praha Manur Ikshvakave Bravit.
Okay, and then Simon, you can continue with the Sanskrit for the next one.
Evam parampara praptam imam rajashayo viduhu sa kalyaneha mahata yoga nashtaha parantapa. This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it appears to be lost.
So this is like a potted history, these first two verses. Krishna has gone back to a time period which is not just maybe just before his birth or around the time of his appearance. He's speaking about instructing the sun god Vivasvan. And how old is the sun? Well, it's older than any of us here. So he's speaking about instructing the sun god. That's quite something. And then the sun god instructed it to Manu, who happens to be the father of mankind. So well before any of us have turned up. And then Manu instructs it to his son Ikshvaku. And there's a chain of disciplic succession that's described, and it's a chain involving saintly kings. But the succession broke at some point, and it appears the science is missing. You can carry on, please.
Sa evayam maya tedya yoga prokta puratana bhakto si me sakkajiti rahasyam tat uttamam.
Hmm.
That every ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science.
Yes, let's explore some of the terms used in this particular verse. Yoga prokta puratana. Puratana means something very, very old. Purana comes from that same thing. Histories, basically, things that are very, very old, ancient. And yoga is yoga. Bhakto sime sakha cheti. Bhakto means a devotee. Sakha means friend. Bhakto sime sakha cheti. You are my devotee, but you are also my friend. And therefore, rahasyam. This science is actually a mystery. Not everyone has access to it, and not everyone can understand it, even if it's presented to them. Rahasyam yetad uttamam. This mystery is transcendental. Uttamam, it's the supreme mystery. And I am speaking this to you because you are my friend and my devotee. This is Arjun's qualification. He is surrendered to Krishna and he's friendly towards Krishna. So that gives us an understanding that Krishna will not impart this knowledge to demons. He won't do it. Even if they hear the words, nothing will happen. Nothing useful will happen. And there's so many examples of that in the scripture. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the Mahabharata war, just preceding this whole episode, Duryodhan has heard countless times from Bhishma Dev and others that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But does it sink in? Not at all. It just doesn't get in, just doesn't go in, because he does not have the permission from Krishna. The gate hasn't been opened. Or you could say his own sinful behavior is forcibly keeping the gate shut. And therefore we need to open that gate. It's not just about acquiring knowledge. Knowledge comes, knowledge goes. Knowledge is available often in abundance. It is about questioning our ability to accept that knowledge. So here are the criteria. One has to be a devotee of Krishna, and one has to be a friend of Krishna. It doesn't say one has to be vastly learned. It doesn't say one has to be strong. One has to be beautiful. One has to have incredibly good karma. None of that. It says you have to be a devotee and a friend of Krishna. An interesting set of criteria. Let's go on to the next verse.
Arjuna vacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivashvathaha kathamyatam vijaniyam tvam ado proktavaniti. Arjuna said, the sun god Vivashvan is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructing this science to him?
Yes. Katham etad vijanyam. How can I understand this mystery that you, Krishna, you appear to be just like like my friend, similar age to me, something like that, and look similar and hang around with me. But you were talking to the Sun Lord? How does this work? It's obviously a fundamentally important question. Krishna's really, really just confused him with this statement earlier, that I instructed this science to the sun god. But here is the answer. And text 5, please.
Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Bahuni me vyatatani janmani tava charjuna tani aham veda sarvani na tvam vetha parantapa.
Yes, and the next verse?
English, sir?
Oh, sorry, yes, you do the English, please.
The personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed, and I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy.
Simon?
Ajopi's son avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim svam adhishtahaya sambhavamo atma mayaya. Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form.
Krishna really just explains reincarnation to Arjuna. Many, many births, both you and I have passed. Text 5 is the verse of reincarnation, but there's a little difference. Krishna's births are not quite reincarnation. They're not quite the same as ours. Because in text 6, it explains that he appears in his transcendental body. Unlike us, whose bodies are material and definitely deteriorate. When Krishna appears in every millennia, through many, many births, as it's described, he retains his transcendental body and appears in this world out of his choice. And there is a clear difference here, which should make the Mayavadis quake in fear, at least philosophically, and put all their nonsense philosophies basically to rest. A clear difference between God and us. A very clear difference. God is infallible, his body never deteriorates, and he instructs the sun god. All of these are activities which we do not do. We pass many births, yes, but they're not in our control. And in each of them we witness our body deteriorating. Therefore, there is a clear gulf of difference between the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and us as the subordinate, marginal parts and parcels. Krishna needs to make this point to Arjuna, just so he doesn't start to analyze him in the same way he might analyze another human. And this knowledge of Krishna's identity is very much key to us learning how to worship him and serve him and to transform that karma into karma yoga. Because karma does not become karma yoga if you have a concept of a person who is fallible. It is only karma yoga when it is connected to the Supreme Person, who is totally different to anyone else in this world. There's some wonderful verses still to come here. Let's do 7 and 8.
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata apyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam shrijami alham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself.
8.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Paritranaya sadhunanam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samshtapartarnaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to re-establish the principle of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium.
These two verses are very, very important. You should know them off by heart. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Krishna's appearances. He's giving Arjuna information as to how and why he appears. He said earlier that he comes every millennium, and here is a little information as to how he times his appearances. He waits for a suitable point and when religious practice needs to be rejuvenated, and he appears to do that role. And when he comes, he simultaneously gives delight to the pious people, those who are servants of Krishna, or those who are well-wishers or decent people, And to the miscreants, the troublemakers, he destroys them. And he also does something to re-establish the principles of religion. Because if you just remember in text 2, what was the word that was used? Sakaleneha mahata yogo nashta parantapaha. Destruction, right? Scattered. The word nashta means scattered. The science of the relationship was destroyed. Therefore, Krishna comes to reinstate that. And therefore, this is the third aspect, the third reason for his birth. The first, I mean, you can make a list here. When religious practice declines, of people in general, their religious practice declines, irreligion becomes more prominent. That's when Krishna comes. He also comes to deliver the pious, to annihilate all the troublemakers, and to re-establish the principles of religion. And therefore Krishna says he comes again. He keeps doing this job. Remember Krishna said, if I did not conduct my duties, the world will be put to ruination. This is directly it. If Krishna does not come and the miscreants flourish and religious principles are absent, what hope is there for anyone in this world? So he comes. He comes as per his pledge, that I come to keep things going and to give people a chance to follow the perfect person. This is Krishna's job description almost. And this all leads us to text 9. Can you read that, please?
Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tatvata taktva deham punarjanma naiti mam eti sorajuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna.
When you contact and are immersed in the full transcendental understanding, you don't have any further business here in this material world. Just by understanding the birth and activities of Krishna and how they are specifically, as the verse says, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Divyam. Janma Karma means birth and activities. Chame Divyam, transcendental. Arjun's birth and activities are not transcendental, they are material, as indeed all of ours are. But Krishna's birth and activities are transcendental, and if you understand those as being transcendental and being of and from a different realm of potency also, then there's no further need for you to take birth here again in this world. Consequently, no further death. You deserve to be somewhere else because you have sufficiently meditated on the Supreme Lord. So it often requires us quite some time before we fully understand the birth and activities of the Lord. But at least we can theoretically start that process. Krishna appeared in this world and he was fully transcendental. You know, when you read the stories of Krishna's appearances, even in all the different incarnations as the Bhagavatam gives you, with this knowledge illuminating your reading, you will actually get a different flavor of understanding. Those who haven't got a very developed understanding of Krishna, they may still relish hearing of his Janmashtami pastimes, his birth, as Ram Navami, Vaman Dwadashi and others. But if they don't quite understand how Krishna's appearance here is transcendental, they will be more preoccupied with the details of, oh, it was as a result of the Akashvani which told Devaki that, which told everyone and Kamsa that the 8th son of Devaki will be the one who kills you. And then Kamsa started to kill Devaki, and in order to basically save his wife, Vasudev promised that I will deliver all the babies to you. And they'll be more wrapped up in all that. That's all fun. It's all fun story. But they may see it as just an exciting adventure that's happened. They'll forget that this is the Supreme Lord with transcendental pastimes. And his birth is not just like a normal birth of someone in a prison cell to a convict. His birth in the prison cell is by his own personal sweet desire. And then when he does appear in the prison, after much difficulty from Devaki and Vasudeva and trauma gone through them, he then reveals to them his full form in that prison. We need to understand it's transcendental Leela. Then you understand it in a different way. So Janma Karma Chame Divyam. This is a very, very important verse. Text 10, please.
Vitaraga Bahaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upashrita Bhavo Gnana Tapasa Putamad Bhavam Agataha. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me, and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me.
To attain transcendental love of Krishna, as I mentioned, may not just be about understanding a sentence or two about Janma and Karma, how they're Divyam. It'll require a bit of practice to realize it properly. And one needs to develop transcendental qualities. Now, one doesn't need to separately endeavor for those transcendental qualities, but by a program of spiritual practice, all the good qualities of the demigods and all of these transcendental qualities manifest automatically. Harau abhaktasya kuto mahat guna manorathena sati dhavato bihi. These qualities of freedom from attachment, fear, and anger, we just discussed how deep-seated they are in the consciousness. Didn't we? We just discussed how lust has completely captured 3 places within the city, 3 places within the fort, and is holding the prime vantage points there. Well, you can become free from attachment, fear, and anger by engaging in a path of devotional service, of regular daily practice, and of purifying our consciousness with transcendental subject matter, during which one needs to be absorbed in Krishna. No doubt while we're discussing the subject matter or hearing of the subject matter, we are somewhat absorbed. That needs to be continued and developed on a more solid basis. Absorbed in me, and then taking refuge in me. Seeing Krishna not just as a nice concept or something intriguing to study, but actually seeing Krishna as my shelter. Krishna, I am dependent upon you, actually. My knowledge is leading me to this conclusion that I am dependent upon you, and I cannot actually function or survive without you. That's a stage that's a kind of element of the practice that we're hoping to develop. When that happens, many persons in the past have become purified through transcendental knowledge, and therefore that benediction also awaits us. This transcendental knowledge, as I said, will not be accessible unless you are pure, or unless you are sufficiently pure for it to enter your heart. If you're demoniac, you are not free from attachment, fear, and anger. Even if you hear the words, they won't really go in deeply. They'll just bounce off you again. So we've got simultaneous work to do. Acquiring that transcendental knowledge requires a purification of our existence. And that transcendental knowledge very powerfully acts and very quickly blossoms into transcendental love for Krishna. Transcendental love for Krishna is a very great gift. So let's read text 11.
Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajami aham mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvasha. As all surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respect, O son of Pita.
Krishna deals with everyone in this world in a special, unique way. There is no second in control with Krishna, right? Or there is no competitor. That's a better way to put it. There's no competitor. It's not that there are multiple entities trying to fight to be the supreme lords of the living entities. Not possible. Krishna is the Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, the creator of everything, and the Sarvakarana Karanam, the cause of all causes. And every single living entity, whether they know it, or whether they like it, or whether they don't like it, or is still factually connected to Krishna. And in accordance with their alignment to Krishna's desires, Krishna rewards them in that way. Proportional. Doesn't Prabhupada say, right? Neha Bikramanashasti, never any loss or diminution. If you complete 40% in this life, you will start your next life at 41. Here it said the same thing, basically. To the degree with which you surrender to me, to that degree I come closer to you. And this is an essential aspect of us understanding Krishna's impartiality. He doesn't favor one person over another. But then you will notice that he does certain things for his devotees which he doesn't do for others. But that's in an attempt to reciprocate with their love. So if anyone, even a demon, shows love or respect for Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate with them in a suitable manner. He hasn't excluded anyone. By their behavior, they have excluded themselves. See, these are very, very intriguing points. You could literally read this chapter again and again, meditate on it for days in order to properly understand it. It's very, very significant, these first 10 verses. Krishna then goes on to a bit more of an application side of things in the next few verses. And I will encourage you to read them. Let's read several of them together. Someone can read text 11 to 13, please, together. You don't need to do the Sanskrit now for this part.
So as also this was already read.
Oh, it was already read. Yeah. So
Yes.
the next three then, please.
Men in this world desire success in fruitive activities, and therefore they worship the demigods. Quickly, of course, men get results from fruitive work in this world. Should I continue?
Carry on. Yeah.
Okay. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, be unchangeable. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reaction of work.
Very key points to do with karma specifically. You remember, I mentioned that this transcendental knowledge chapter allows us to perform karma yoga properly. Therefore, we have to learn about the object of this karma yoga, Krishna, because it is in consciousness of him that one can perform karma yoga properly. So, some very, very important points here, that demigod worship has been established by the Lord for those who desire fruitive activities, and they will naturally be drawn to them to get some results. And Krishna then additionally says that there are three modes operating in this world, and these four divisions that we spoke about earlier, the four varnas, right? They're created. Each has their own particular type of work. But Krishna doesn't accrue any kind of karma through anything he does. He's unchangeable, it says. He's also the non-doer. Don't forget, that's the mystery, right? How do I act? How do I not perform action and at the same time fight? That was the whole puzzle for Arjuna in the beginning of chapter 3. So Krishna is making one point. Don't think we're the same. I can do anything I like and there's no reaction for me at all. Anything I like, I can do. and there's no reaction for me. And text 14, same thing. Nothing affects me. But I have also got no interest in obtaining the fruits of any action. Now, if you understand this truth about me, you will not become entangled in fruitive reactions of work. Now, how is that? Well, the simple point here is that any action Krishna does not affect him. Right? The inference is that if we carry out actions that are as per Krishna's desire, which can by definition produce no karma, we also benefit from no reactions. Anything to do with Krishna and his desire, if we align ourselves to it, will result in no reaction for us. That's the crux of all of this information. Align yourself to Krishna. Let's read text 15, 16, 17, and 18.
All the liberated souls in ancient times acted with this understanding of my transcendental nature. Therefore, you should perform your duty following in their footsteps. Even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is inaction. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what inaction is. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent among men, and he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities.
The intelligent can get confused understanding what is called action and what is inaction. And you can have a few mysterious verses now. He's going to explain exactly what action is. And there's three things we need to know. Akarma vikarma ya pashyet, text 17. Karmano hi api bodhavyam cha vikarmana, akarmanas cha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. Right, the word karmana comes multiple times there. But within this, you can extract karmana, vikarmana, akarmanas. So these are three terms. Akarma, karma, and vikarma. Let's make sure we understand precisely what they are. Karma means action. Action that is prescribed action, you can say. Karma is prescribed action. Vikarma is action that is not prescribed. Action that is forbidden. And then akarma is that action that you could basically call inaction in the sense that it doesn't produce a result. So you've got three things. You've got action, bona fide action, you've got forbidden action, and you've got inaction. And so then the next verse confuses you also. Karmani akarmaya pashyat akarmani cha karmaya sabuttiman manusheshu sayukta kritsna karmakrit. One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction. How's that for a tongue twister? One who sees inaction in action and action in inaction is intelligent in men. And he is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all activities. You see what we're trying to do here, what Krishna is trying to teach Arjuna is how to extract inaction, the principle of inaction, from an action. Krishna's already told Arjun not to act because it causes problems. And he's also told him how to fight. So this is what Arjun needs to know. How can I fight? But how can it be considered to be inaction? That's the trick that he's got to get. And you see how Krishna's developed it all very methodically, step by step, to bring it to this point. Does that make sense? It's a bit cryptic, but really quite simple in terms of a concept. Terminology is a bit tricky, but yes.
It can be put simply. Work for me binds me, and work for Krishna frees me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And to work for Krishna, you have to know who Krishna is, his nature. That's the thing. So all of this goes into your contemplation on the personality Krishna, who you will then meditate on. And that knowledge, that jnana yoga, will be what transforms your work into karma yoga. So knowledge is very, very important. And imagine now, obviously, I think all of you may have read the Gita anyway in the past. You possibly read the Gita or parts of the Gita. Perhaps now, as we're going through it in detail, you're getting a different flavor of understanding. That's adding much more depth to that knowledge in terms of your experience with it. So this is why this course is very, very important, because these are such fundamental concepts that will help us in a lifetime of devotional service. And so it's good to actually study these points scrutinizingly. We'll read a few more verses. Let's read from text 19 to 23, please. Next person, just the translations.
One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. He who is satisfied with gain, which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence.
I want to make a list of all these points that are made here. And I think maybe let's play with this. Well, actually, the question is, do we need to do this today? I'll tell you what, we won't continue the lesson much more today. We're actually making good progress, and we will not even need all the remaining lessons in order to do this. So I think there's little to be gained by rushing further. So what I will suggest is you read through this section yourself. Go try and make a list of all these items. See, for example, from text 19, you can note down in a list, one of the points can be, every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. Right? You'll have a list of requirements, list of descriptions of the person. Full knowledge is another point there. Right? Reactions have been burned up by perfect knowledge. Then the next verse abandons attachment to the results of his activities. When you have a list of these, and probably from these next several verses, you may have at least 10 points there. These are now your checklist. You can almost compare yourself with this checklist. Do I operate like this? is my every activity devoid of a desire for sense gratification? Is it devoid of a desire for fruits? Come up with that. Next session we will go through. We may use the whiteboard, or we'll find some way to amalgamate all those points and get a definitive list. So really, I think progress at this stage will be more through meditation now on Krishna's words rather than taking in more information. We've covered quite a bit already. So maybe I'll just take any questions if there are any at this stage on what we have. Did you manage to clarify with Deepa regarding shlokas, etc.? I think, Bidisha, you were asking me last time.
Yeah, I did ask, but Prabhuji, I didn't ask her yet. I have to ask her over WhatsApp, and her WhatsApp, it's written. I can only message her. I cannot call her.
Okay.
So yeah, I did not. But as the Prabhuji said, like Simon Prabhu and all that, you have that, the list of the verses. I'll go with that. I'll send a message to her just to confirm that
Yes.
these are the ones. I'll do that. I didn't. Sorry, Prabhu.
Yeah, that's good. Because it's good for you to know what your assessment criteria are.
Yeah.
Because you need to be starting to learn them.
I was trying to practice the verses of
Good.
chapter 2.
Good.
What
Has
was written.
it been going well?
Yeah, trying, Prabhu.
Okay, good. Yeah, learning verses is not always easy, but it's also once you get into it and the swing of it, you'll find it quite nice.
Can I ask for a little like trick over here? Like, is it like if I am reading it, same thing, like say for example, 10 times I read the verse every day. Even like when you're memorizing it, there is no heart in it, but sometimes it gets trained like the next word, when you're saying it 10 times every day, what's the next word, even closing your eyes. Like, it's not that you have learned it by meaning always. Learning it by meaning helps. Definitely. It's like, like our moms or sometimes us, we have this scripture book like that. The moms read it in front of Devi Lakshmi, so they're kind of reading it every day, and then suddenly it gets memorized only. So you are no longer required to see it some lines. Just trying to understand, like, is there any tricks to learn it?
No tricks really, but techniques. And that itself is not a bad thing, that the words just get stuck in your head. It's not bad. I would suggest when you learn it, you maybe learn it in a more focused way. You can actually, before you start trying to learn the Sanskrit, go through the word for word.
The small words that, how
meaning, the meanings of each. Like, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata. Janma means birth.
Yes.
Karma means activity. Chame divyam, connected to me, is transcendental, right?
Yeah.
My transcendental birth and activities. You'll have just from that one line, you've got so much meaning already. So it will speak to you when you recite that.
Yeah.
And then learn it line by line and try and also think about it at the time.
Meaning helps. It's just that, like, the positioning of the word, like that alphabet was like third in Sanskrit or second, that.
That's just practice. That's just practice. Sanskrit is a language whereby the word order can be switched around, providing the endings are kept intact, or there's special rules for that grammar also.
Okay. So that is where I struggle a little bit. Like, was it the third word or the fourth word? It's easy to remember in English. And because I didn't learn Sanskrit before, but I do have a educational knowledge. Like, for a few years, I did read Hindi. To certain words, I'm able to understand because it's used in Hindi language.
Yeah.
So it helps a little bit. Sometimes it's the positioning of the words. Is it the third word or the second word? That also it gets confused.
Yeah, it's just memorization. You just have to practice with it. And Sanskrit is quite a
Nice word, but difficult. Very,
living language, almost. The words actually have meanings. They have a kind of like a reality beyond the words themselves. So when you recite it, just practice it. The memory part you just have to deal with that. There's no magic solutions. You just have to remember it somehow or other, and get the word order right as well. But
yes, needs everybody's blessing to remember it. It won't come, and of course, Krishna's blessing.
yes, practice makes perfect.
Yes.
Okay, well, we can close there for today. Please read the rest of this chapter, revise what we've done so far in chapter 4. The next session, we will collect our lists that you've hopefully made on these points and bring them together and just consider them. All right. Thank you all very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki,
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki.